Very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Alexeyev. As you have heard, we are starting the recording, but it's very, very important to take notice of what Mr. Alexeyev just shared. There is a huge gap, financial gap that needs to be covered, and green mortgages are one of the instruments that can be applied to do that. They're applicable in both new builds and in renovation projects, and I hope that Steve would also say a few words on that topic as well. But it's also very important to see how it has already worked in situations which are close to ours, and I hope that this will be our major motivation for the day. So please, Steve, floor is yours. We are anticipating your input and contribution.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, please go ahead.
Great. So yes, definitely. I definitely appreciate the comments of Mr. Alexeyev. Absolutely, the initiative's focus is to leverage the private sector greatly, and I think this is one of the key advantages of the Green Mortgage Program. We'll talk about new construction today, but all of the principles definitely apply to renovation as well, because this, as we know, particularly in Central Eastern Europe, we have numerous projects that need to be renovated, as well as a lot of new construction over the coming years. So I'm happy to go into that. I'll go ahead and share my slides. 1 second. Can you just confirm that the slides are shared?
Yes, they are. It all seems in place. You can.
Very good. Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about, of course, the program we founded in Romania, but also a bit of the internationalization of that program, which has been a really exciting development in really the last 3 years. And we're excited to work with InEffect in Bulgaria with that as our key partner, and really some excellent organizations around Europe. So I am typically based in Bucharest, but the project I'll explain is quite a number of people around the world now. But before I dig into the actual details of the program, I want to give you a little bit of the backstory of the program. You're looking now at a construction site. This happens to be in Romania, but this could be, I think, in many parts of the world, really an extreme example of informal, underfinanced, and let's say not properly managed construction. This is a single family house, but some of the same qualities can be seen in some multifamily and larger developments. But you'll see here, Romanian zone, a lot of concrete, perhaps not the best materials. You see the building site is exposed to rain and snow, which means the asset, this house, can be really damaged before it is even occupied originally. So we can look at it even on the electrics. They're not done properly. This is not only a convenience, but a safety problem with fire risk and shock risk. So quite some issues that come up from non-professional development. Here, this is Amber Gardens, our first certified project in Romania, obviously a much different extreme, and a very high quality building. And what's very important is this building, at the original low energy prices, not the energy prices we face today, but the original low energy prices, this house saved the approximate value of 2 to 3 mortgage payments per year in energy savings relative to standard houses. So from a financial risk, borrower who purchased this house has a lot more money in their pocket. And how did we get here? Obviously, this type of house requires proper investment, proper design, execution, materials, innovation, etc. And so when we talk about green mortgage, what we're really talking about is responsible borrowing versus poor construction. And we know that people shouldn't borrow more money than they can afford, but at the same time, if they try to do a project too cheaply, they end up really ruining what may be the biggest asset of their family. And this isn't good for the bank, and this is not good for the home buyer. So the obvious point in buildings is there's only one good time to invest, and that, of course, is at the beginning of the project and even before the project leaves the design stage in the computer, if you will. And this is what we do is take these long-term benefits of building a proper home and turn them into immediate benefits. Because human beings, we are notoriously irrational. Even though we know the right thing to do, often others get in the way. So any way that we can put that monthly investment to a great home and turn those into immediate monthly benefits, that will encourage people to do that. And that's exactly what the mortgage provides. I say often that we can make the banking sector the heroes of sustainability, because sustainability requires resources at the beginning of these projects. And this is exactly what banks provide. And another key concept of our program is that, of course, the home cost is not simply the mortgage payment. There's health cost, energy cost, repair cost. Health is actually one of the leading reasons for bankruptcy in many countries around the world. You lose your job, but if you lose your health or a loved one's health, this has a very traumatic effect on the finances of a family and often cause a bankruptcy event or inability to pay the mortgage. Energy costs were significant, and they were significant before the energy price increases we've seen in the last few months. And we're expecting to have a very expensive winter. I think this goes for much of Central Eastern Europe, is actually affecting the United States as well. Repair cost as well. I showed you the building in the beginning, the extreme example of poor construction. Not only is it poorly thermal insulated, but also hydro insulated. So you have rain infiltrating the building and then freezing and unfreezing 20 cycles, perhaps during the winter. So this destroys a building. Again, often these buildings are damaged before they even are occupied. So none of this is good for the bank. On a more macroeconomic scale and really maybe a geopolitical scale, for those who've been watching the green finance space, things have been really exciting. I just listed a number of initiatives. There's the Network for Greening the Financial System, the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, the Sustainable Development Goals, actions of the European Central Bank, the Paris Agreement, EU Taxonomy, which I'll talk about, and many other extremely important geopolitical initiatives. And these days, I think we're getting the message, and green finance is actually really, I think its time is now. You'll see, of course, in the next couple of weeks, the Glasgow meeting, COP26 of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. I will be participating along with some of my colleagues from our consortium to really send the message and explain the benefits of the program to, I think, an audience that is much more receptive to these concepts. There's also what's called the Network for Greening the Financial System. This is a network of central banks, many in Europe. It was initiated in Europe, but now around the world. And these are central banks, national banks, explaining to the banking community that there's a necessity to provide much more climate-related risk disclosure in a bank's financials and to take mitigating actions. And we've been fortunate, the Bank of Romania, National Bank, has joined this network, and we have been jointly publishing research in the country, and we expect this collaboration to go on, and many of the countries in our consortium are joined as well. You may have heard EU Taxonomy for Sustainable Activities. Very briefly, this is a framework that the European Union is leading in order to provide a credible solution to determine if investments are green or not green. This goes well beyond buildings to include renewable energy projects like wind farms, to transport projects, many agriculture projects, many things that can be considered green. But of course, today we talk about buildings and specifically homes. And what the EU taxonomy basically says, that point in the top left, the climate change mitigation, you can think of that as really, that's the energy component. What energy is obviously the direct contributor to carbon emissions. So how do we mitigate carbon and other greenhouse gases? But all those other points are also very important. And circular economy, how we deal with waste, avoiding pollution, protecting our ecosystems, biodiversity. These are big issues in Romania. I know they're big issues in Bulgaria as well. And many of our countries, really probably every country in the world is looking at this. And all of these other things beyond energy fall into what the taxonomy calls the do no significant harm concept. And so if you look at the top left, you're basically to reduce carbon, but you should do no significant harm to the other points of these. And this is what I'm happy to explain today. This is really what our program is already delivering and actually has been delivering for many years. And I think we have a lot of exciting solutions here to solve that. So if a bank decides to offer a green mortgage, I think there's a lot of questions that come up. You can create a green mortgage, but how do you monitor that mortgage over time to make sure that it stays green? Was it green to begin with? What did you use the right measurement? And is it credible? Is the measurement process credible? It's complex. We as green building councils, we spend 40 hours a week or more trying to analyze buildings and define our certifications and do different things. And it is a full-time job. So this is a complex question. Is it taxonomy aligned? I showed that taxonomy. If you want to turn your banking portfolio into a green bond in international markets, it needs to be taxonomy aligned in the future. So how do you know that? And deal flow. If you create a green mortgage, will anyone actually ask for them, or will it just an investment of your time without any results? Valuation. We had issues in Romania when we issued our first green mortgages that the financial evaluators who go out on behalf of the bank to ensure the value of the property, they weren't familiar with a lot of green approaches. So they're actually reducing valuation rather than increasing. So we had to educate them on these new approaches, and we actually have a lot of research on that. Coming back to this, again, complex question is a building green or not? A big part of green buildings is, of course, energy efficiency and green buildings. If you don't use fossil fuel and you substitute with green energy, this is a very useful point. In our program, we utilize the energy performance certificates. We just basically ensure that they're done correctly and at a very high level. So we cover the energy efficiency, green energy part. But as you can see, there's many other parts here. Are you mitigating construction waste? Are you reusing? Are you collecting the construction waste in a way that could be reused differently? Are you managing the site properly that creates no ecological damage and health of the workers, etc.? Indoor air quality in your homes. This was a growing issue before the pandemic. In the commercial real estate space, wellness has become a very popular topic. Now, with us spending much more time in our homes than any of us imagined since 2020, indoor air quality is a big issue. The materials used, how they're used, are they harvested sustainably from a country's biosystems? Location, does it include access to public transit and walkability so that you can access things without jumping in a car every time you need something. So all of these things we look at. We also, I'm going to go obviously somewhat fast through all of the program today, but we have on the right, you have a toolkit. We have it in Bulgarian, in English, that explains very carefully the details of the program. And on the left is just an example of some marketing materials that our banking partners are offered to, that they can use these, and many other communication tools that we've created through this project. We also have all the legal agreements. It's a very simple partnership that we work with banks. We basically work with them. They rely on us to determine if a project is green or not. And they, based on that decision, offer a green mortgage following their standard procedures. So it's there's a lot of complexity that we solve, but I think at the end of the day, the partnership is somewhat simple. We're also very fortunate. There's something called Levels, which this is the European Union's Directorate General of Environment, has created this Levels framework. And I won't go into details, it could be a long discussion, but we have a document that explains exactly how we address this. The Levels is basically, think of it as a certification of building certifications. So is an organization's certification matching what the European Commission believes they should be looking at? And this, I'm happy to say, I won't go through this slide in too much detail, but that's us on the left and all of our partners. And the criteria that you see, the energy efficiency, savings, indoor air quality, everything, life cycle analysis, embodied carbon, we match up very strongly. And we support other rating systems such as LEED and BREEAM, which you may have seen probably in the commercial space. But this is something where we've basically designed the system to meet or exceed the most ambitious definition here. As far as deal flow, one of the reasons I'm very confident that we'll see this is there's been a few, let's say, growing developments with the net zero energy building standards that the European Commission and European Union member states have adopted. The reference building is changing. So going forward in the future, the energy investments by a real estate developer are going to be mandated at a certain level. And for those of us in the building industry, we know that the energy investments typically are one of the largest budget components. That if you're going to improve energy efficiency, you often maybe need better materials, perhaps more materials, more insulation, but also very importantly, it has to be installed correctly, which requires training and supervision and a skilled workforce. So this does take money. But all developers now are mandated to do this. So in a way, the relative budgets don't change. And much of the other green criteria that I showed you, I say it's basically about thinking more, not spending more. And I could give you just a quick example of that. On the right side here, we have Bio-Climatic Design. And what that means is building homes to work with nature. And a very good example is you can have a home that's designed to collect the winter sun and avoid the summer sun. And it avoids the summer sun by shading, by orienting the building properly. So during the design phase, you maybe have to spend a little bit of money on the software required to do the solar orientation study. You may have to spend a little money on shading devices that shade the windows or better windows on certain sides. But even before the project is done, by doing all of this, you can undersize the heating, the ventilating, the air conditioning. So in a way, you're using nature to build a better building, but you're saving cost before you even finish the project. So this CapEx and OpEx that I talk about here, many of us, we talk about, okay, we make an investment for green and how many years of operating expenses until we get payback for that. I would actually argue that many times we can reduce the capital expenditures or keep them even equal to a poorly constructed building, just with better thinking and better green approaches. But then when we add in the operational expense reductions over time, that's when things get very interesting. And just to introduce one more sort of key concept, and know somewhat the Bulgarian market, but obviously I know the Romanian market a bit better, but many of the markets in the region, is that the buyers have a big focus on the sales price of a home, or what we call the first cost, what you have to actually invest to buy the home. And what we're arguing is often this is not what you pay. If you're taking a mortgage, you're paying, as I mentioned, the mortgage payment plus energy cost, health cost, repair cost. So it's a shifting of buyer mentality that we're looking to do. When we talk about deal flow, this is one of a very successful project in Bucharest. We have many to show you for case studies, but no time to do so today. They finished their first phase, and now they're working on the second phase. Very nice project. When people tell me about the ability of a country such as Romania to build to this standard, what I'm showing you here is Romania's entry into the Solar Decathlon Europe contest, which is a very prestigious contest for students around Europe. So the average age on the design team is probably 22 years, 23 years old. And they're building buildings that exceed our standards. And I can tell you, this is Romania's team. They won third place. I think there were about 20 competitors around Europe of countries. And so they were in the third place for overall competition, but they were in first place for having the smallest budget. So it's not a matter of spending, it's a matter of thinking. And I think this is a case where we had really demonstrated a new way to do it. And really, if 23-year-old students can do this, certainly we can ask the same from our industry. This is another project beyond Romania. This is in Bosnia-Herzegovina that is being designed right now to our standards. And we really have many to show you. We have about 11,000 in Romania, equaling about 1.5 billion in projects. But if we can include all of the countries that have joined our project, we're just about 70 projects, 21,000, almost 21,500 units that are either certified or in process of being certified. And total value is basically 3.125 billion euros. So it's still a percentage of the total market, but it's a growing percentage, and I think it's a relevant percentage. This is our first partner in Romania was Raiffeisen Bank. Just to show you very quickly how the program looks from the buyer's perspective. On the left, we have let's say, I wouldn't say poorly constructed, but let's say a standard building, which it gets a B on the energy performance certificate. We used an example price of about 80,000 euros for that. And on the right, we have one that's qualified for our program, about 85,000 euros. And the loan amounts, therefore, are different. You're borrowing slightly more for the green qualified home, but with the discounted interest rate, the mortgage payment is about the same for the two. When you add in the energy savings, and again, we're going to see it this winter as we go through this much higher energy cost, there becomes a very huge difference. And I don't think this is an exaggeration, even though we have the one on the right is 1/3 for the types of homes that we've seen and the types of performance differences we can achieve. Having something at 1/3 the energy use is I think reasonable. But even if it isn't, as you can see, the total cost of ownership to the homeowner is significantly less for a much better home on the right. So even if those energy savings were not as great, we have some room. I think about roughly 70 euros where those energy prices can increase, and it would still be a better deal for the homeowner. Alpha Bank in Romania also launched a program for new construction and renovation. They did a national television campaign with us promoting the program. We're happy now to have Libra Internet Bank who's joined, and interestingly, they've launched also a development loan for developers who achieve our green certification, that is better financial terms. Other banking partners, we have Banco Comercial Romana, which is Erste Group's local affiliate in Romania. We have Home Building Finance of Ireland, BNP Paribas, and Boss Bank in Poland, and Guarantee Bank, BBVA, joining the program as well. Those three mystery banks on the bottom, those represent other banks that we've signed agreements with, but we have not publicly announced them. They're preparing the final stages of their program and their public launch. So we're big changes and really a lot of movement going forward. The program is about 18 countries, and you see a big focus on Central Eastern Europe, but we have Ireland and Italy joining and implementing the same program. And now we're happy to be joined by Colombia, which is launching their program October 28th. Brazil should be following shortly. We'll have a workshop in Morocco, and Indonesia will launch as well before mid-November. So quite a lot of progress. These countries that you see here represent almost 900 million people, if we include South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia. So it's really a large portion of the planet are now here. This is a photo of our recent launch in the Republic of Moldova. Very nice attendance, I think about 50 people. On the screen there behind the speakers, our colleague from Raiffeisen Bank Romania is addressing the crowd and explaining their experience with the program. So I think a very enthusiastic launch that we had. This is the consortium of the project. There's about 60 people behind it across now 23 organizations around the world, but also some expert organizations such as INEFFECT in Bulgaria, also universities, University Libre de Bruxelles, and the Danish Technical University. The Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency is a United Nations sponsored organization, and the energy agencies of Greece and Georgia joining as well. So it's quite a good group of people. This is just a small sample of what I call the toolkits that explain the program. You have this in Bulgarian, but I think it's 12 languages now that we have this, including English, of course, to really explain the program. And those 60 people have been working, coming up on almost 2.5 years now of this project. So we have a lot of documentation, research agreements to support the program, and we're happy to help you navigate that because it's quite a lot of information. But we tried to keep it simple and easy to navigate. But we're happy to help. As with most European projects, we also did a lot of outreach. These are workshops and conferences in Belgium. Some of this was pre-pandemic, you can imagine. In Czech Republic, Bosnia, Herzegovina, we have Bulgaria, I think bottom right, and really all around Europe, Ireland as well, Turkey. So really very good responses. We also have an advisory board, which I'm very happy to have the participation. We have the Climate Bonds Initiative, which is really one of the leading NGOs talking about green bonds and green finance. UNECE, Guarantee Mortgage, the top executives, as well as EBRD, Pension Denmark, the Green Climate Fund, which is part of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. One of their directors had joined us, and really just a great group all around. And you can see this again in our documentation. Just to sort of wrap up, this sort of a quick overview, I think some of the key points for banks to look at is to make sure that programs, the green finance programs that you adopt, do align with the EU taxonomy. This is something that we believe the projects in our program not only align, but they actually exceed requirements of that taxonomy. It should have credible governance and a green framework. Levels program that I mentioned, through our own processes, we believe our certifications deliver that credibility so that you know that the projects in your green program are indeed green, and that you can rely on this. Another thing, this again could be a presentation by itself, underwriting and green value. I have a colleague, Taylor, with our project finance experts related to residential finance.
If we are starting to lose you, thanks God, it's at the end of the presentation, but you're disappearing for big periods.
Yeah, and then that green finance should be a transformational opportunity to really improve much better projects. So with that, I would say connect with us, connect with InEffect with your interest, and we're happy to take it forward. And I can end it there, and hope my quality comes back for the internet here.
Thanks a lot, Steve, and thanks again for taking time. It's quite a generous gesture from your side. Although we are quite ahead of time, I would like to ask for some immediate reactions or questions to Steve. He will be with us until the end of the session, but still, if anyone is willing to jump in and ask a question regarding to the contents of the presentation, please go ahead.
Hello, it's Polina Dikova. I would like to ask what kind exactly of APC characteristic is labeled as green in your market? I see here APC-B.
Yeah, so the that was the comparison of the non-green building, the non-qualified project. So let me go back to the slide. So this on the left here, the energy efficiency. So we require that you meet or exceed the minimum conditions of the EU taxonomy on sustainable finance. So what that currently means is it would have to be an A on our energy audit and exceed the NZEB requirements by 10% for new construction. So this is something that is, let's say, an ambitious target, but it's something that our projects are already achieving. So definitely the B, particularly the B in the current list of projects in Romania would not qualify. And I should say, I think it's the same for Bulgaria, where we're today seeing projects that were approved prior to the NZEB standard. So a project that received a B is really nowhere near energy efficient enough for us to consider. So the short answer, it needs to be an A and also needs to meet or exceed the NZEB requirements for Romania.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Do you hear me?
Sure, please go ahead.
Yes. For if we take the upper interval of kilowatt per hour for energy efficient of class B, can be considered as a green.
So what for the project, each of our countries, the implementing partner countries, have different approaches to energy and things where, for example, a B class may be very difficult in some countries to achieve, very high standard. Whereas I know, for example, in Romania, B was really quite simple to achieve. So I would say, really, we'll leave that to, in effect, for Bulgaria to determine the ultimate cutoff point, both for projects today and for projects that are now being designed under the NZEB standard as to what is reasonable. But typically, it's usually the highest performing in the A class. But if there was if a B is indeed a very high performing building, it may be considered in some countries. So I don't know, Dragomir or Cayman, if you want to comment on that from your own analysis or your own thinking at this time.
Definitely, we have that issue covered in the next few slides that I'm about to present. And then here we have two of our leading engineers and certifiers that can give further detail on why we have selected an ambitious target. But yeah, we will have a few words on that in the next few minutes. Definitely.
Great. And I can stay until the end for questions. So if we want to proceed with your presentation, and then if there's overall questions, I'm happy to do it, or can be reached by email after as well. So
yes, probably yeah, we should move forward to the next few slides. I will try to be extremely fast but still precise as much as possible, so that we also can give a glimpse of what is our offer, how we contribute to the development of the market, and what are the basic parameters that we are trying to prioritize with the Bulgarian Green Mortgage Program, the way that we suggested. Of course, that's something that's open for further development and involvement of different parties. So first of all, not many people in the financial sector probably know what N-Effect is, so I need to share a few words about that. So N-Effect is a policy consultancy for 30 years now, a policy consultancy that is, however, offering technical consultancy services by being licensed for energy audits for buildings, industrial systems, whatever, basically, and energy efficient building design. We are managing the municipal energy efficiency network Eco Energy for 25 years now, but probably most importantly, we have to say that we are participating together with Elana and Econoler in the management. We are fund managers of the Bulgarian Energy Efficiency and Renewable Sources Fund. And that's, in our appreciation, given the circumstances, a successful endeavor for more than 15 years now. The last thing that I would like to mention is that we are the most, I would say, active or ambitious organization in research and innovation projects in terms of participation in Horizon 2020. So with 25 projects in the last 7 years, we are far ahead than any university. And here it's basically where we gain our knowledge, but our role is primarily to develop the market. We are not looking to concentrate the activities in our organization, but to open up the market and involve other actors, and that's also important to know. So, yeah, in shortly, we have quite a significant experience in energy auditing according to the Bulgarian methodology. We are certified passive house designers, and passive house is the foundation in our understanding of all further developments, energy efficiency being the top priority. We implement ISO, we are authoring methodology guidances. We are contributing to university programs in the University of Architecture, where our office is situated, and also in the construction universities. We have a training center. Actually, the picture that you're seeing on my screen is from our training center in the University of Architecture. So some insight on quality assurance. as well. And as I mentioned, very actively participating in Horizon 2020 projects where we get our know-how from. A big part of these projects is on building certifications. So that's something that we are very much looking into. Before moving forward, again, a word, why green mortgage certification? Why not LEED, BREEAM? Why not Passive House? Why not only the national standards? Because the green mortgage is broader than most of the other standards, but is accommodated to the national conditions. And that combinations makes it a preferred choice for us based on our experience with other certification schemes. So what do we have in our adaptation? A very strong focus on results. So that's a result-oriented methodology from our side. We're trying to be as strict as possible in determining the energy costs and the related ownership cost, and that's because of attention that we pay at various stages. So pre-certification, at design phase, evaluating if the design is good enough, very simple wording. Final certification after the construction completion, monitoring after the start of the exploitation, and providing the information to the banks, which is a part of the program everywhere. And then we are fully consistent with the national legislation because the energy performance calculations are done according to the national methodology by accredited energy auditors, and that gives another dimension of security and trust. So what do we need to achieve the impacts that we are targeting? First of all, very high energy efficiency criteria. Probably you are aware that the current requirements for new buildings are that they achieve energy class B, but the new definition for nearly zero energy buildings say that we need to go at a minimum to energy class A. And we are convinced that if we are smart enough and we invest sufficiently in intellectual labor, we are able to be well inside energy class A. So here we should also say that that's the target for getting maximum points. If you achieve the levels which are on the boundary between class A and class B, just getting into class A, you would again be evaluated, you would score, but not the maximum number of points because the methodology evaluates differently the different levels of achievement. And then to that, because we are fully convinced that that's the starting point, the foundation of the certification criteria, we are adding other environmental parameters, which are also related very much to the total cost for the residents, the cost of maintenance, the building, and this is regarding training the occupants, very important, but we also discuss the location, the efficiency of using natural resources, sustainability of materials, health, internal air environment parameters, and also innovations that are introduced. And basically that's the last thing that I would like to focus your attention to. So probably that's the key scheme that we'll be looking at, and that's the scheme that actually convinced us about the advantages of that scheme, is that there is no weak point for any of the four parties that are engaged in the scheme. So it's a win-win situation. And if we look deeper into the arguments that we have analyzed and showcased within these schemes and all the publications that we have prepared, all the documentation that we have prepared also in Bulgarian regarding the green mortgage scheme, we hope that it would be convincing enough both for the banks and the investors, and also for the buyers, for whom I assume the benefits are greatest. So thank you. With this, I would like to thank for your attention. And if you have any questions, either organizational and technical, we are of course open for further discussions, bilateral meetings, and we are always welcomed to involve the expertise of our international partners. We can arrange meetings with them as necessary. Again, thanks for your attention, and please, if you have any questions, the floor is open.
Dragomir, may I just make a quick, and if I may share my screen as well. I think
Yes.
I can show something. Yes. 1 second. So I want to talk about, or just maybe better emphasize this point here is, I talked about how our program lines up to the EU taxonomy. But as you see in the column to the right, maybe 3 over from the right, is the NZEB standard. And I think in a way, I want to use that as a really good example of, for example, something looking at Passive House. And in our opinion, Passive House is really the gold standard for energy efficiency and for design. And as in effect, who can attest with their deep experience, not only in the European projects, but also in build-up skills, working with making sure that these projects are executed correctly. This is the big challenge. But I feel that this slide maybe underestimates or underpresents the achievement of the Passive House, in that this definitely focuses on energy efficiency and energy savings. And it's actually quite easy if a project is pursuing the Passive House designation, that we can fill in all of the other criteria. To be honest, they're usually the cheaper criteria to achieve, and also easier if the project is designed and constructed in a very high level of quality. So we definitely want to keep our focus on high quality projects that obviously protect the planet, but also provide very secure, low risk projects for the bank is the way that the project works. And another thing to emphasize, which Dragomir mentioned as well, and just to go back to find this slide, there's 60 people here, and what we found in projects is that often, you can predict a number of questions and a number of criteria and certification criteria, but every project seems to have a situation come up that maybe is a bit unusual. So through our project, we really do access and really have the ability to reach some of the, I would say, some of the best experts in the world in particular fields for projects, and we bring those to bear. So just wanted to make that point as well.